Hey guys, Sam033 here, and welcome to a new episode of Mix Up. Oops, it's the wrong Groudon EX. Mix Up. And today we're not going to be doing any specific card. We're going to be doing a bunch of cards because today is the day that I will be doing a set review of Dark Explorers, a set that recently is not out yet, but all the cards have been confirmed, and a lot of them look really awesome, and I couldn't tell. Pre-releases are out, and that's why I have Groudon EX full art. Yep, I'm that awesome. So anyway, this set is actually I think this set is very good. It will definitely affect our metagame in a lot of ways. Add a couple decks to the format, and yeah, I just really love the set, and I want to talk about some of my favorite cards from the set. So there's a lot to cover. So let's just get right to it with my low quality shoddiness. But I'm thinking of maybe changing it up a little bit in a few episodes and getting some better quality. But anyway, first up on our list of many cards we're going to be reviewing is Venusaur. It's like one of the first cards in the set in terms of numbers. I believe he's the first rare card in the whole set. Anyway, if I could take less time to zoom in. He has a decent 140 HP, which is pretty standard for stage 2s. He's got Fire Weakness, which isn't that big a problem in this format anymore. I mean, yeah, Retroflosion is still a decent deck, but it's not big enough, especially for a supporting Pokemon, which is definitely going to be. Water Resistance, which is, again, not too great. And Forestry Cost, which is not very great. And his attack also sucks pretty bad. But his ability is actually really nice, if you couldn't tell. It says, once during your turn, you may search your deck for a Pokemon and put it in your hand. It's really nice ability for searching Pokemon. Just get a lot of... But the reason I don't this is being that playable is because it's a stage 2 and you could fit those 7-something slots with something that's necessary. Like, I mean, you're probably going to put it in a stage 2 deck anyway. And since you're already running Arcane, it's probably going to be like 3-2-2 line or 3-1-2 or something line. And you can probably fill that with just more supporting or more supporters to help you set up. So I don't think he's going to be that playable. But in some decks, you could see a comeback. Especially one that we'll be talking about later. Next is Carnivine. This Pokemon's not that fantastic, but he definitely has a lot of interesting attributes that make him pretty good. So first he has 90 HP, which is it's okay. It could be worse for basic. It's not Mew Prime here. Has 2 attacks. Again, Fire Weakness isn't that bad. Water Resistance isn't that great. Retreat Cost is just kind of okay. First attack, Learning Poison, is a pretty good attack. For 1 grass, it says switch defending Pokemon with one of their bench Pokemon, and the new active Pokemon is not poisoned, which would be a pretty good attack, especially in trainer lock decks. But since it's grass, it's not very splashable, like say the old Bellsprout, which some people use in trainer lock situations, or back when trainer lock was really popular and annoying, not like nowadays. But anyway, the second attack is also a very interesting attack. It says for 2 grass and colorless, your opponent puts the defending Pokemon and all cards attached to it into their hand, which you could use on, say, a Mewtwo EX with 7+ energy on it, and you don't have Mewtwo EX of yourself, or you're running something like Durant or Terrakion that doesn't even use Mewtwo for the most part, except maybe Terrakion sometimes. But anyway, Carnivine, you could just take all that energy off of Mewtwo and have them start building it up again. Or any other Pokemon that's hard to set up. For example, you could catch up Magnezone or Emboar or something, and then use this, and they have to take a few turns setting them up again. Or you could do this on, say, Ninetales or something to shut down the draw support. So it's a decent card that you could try out in a couple decks, but not major play for the most part. So next up is Acelgor, the last grass Pokemon we're going to be talking about. He has 90 HP, which is for stage 2, or for stage 1. It's just okay. Free Retreat is very nice. Fire Weakness is, again, not too bad, especially since you can get one-hit KO'd by Reshiram anyway. And he's not going to be in the active spot too much because of his second attack. His first attack really standard. But his second attack, Deck and Cover, is very interesting. For just a double colorless, it does 50 damage and says the defending Pokemon is now paralyzed and poisoned. Automatic, no flip. But the downside is you have to shuffle him back into your deck after using the attack. So really it's just a great attack. It's automatic paralyzation, kind of like Vanillux, except it's 100% going to happen, not like, have to use Fliptini and whatnot. He can do it by itself. I said he and it in the same sentence, whatever. But obviously the problem is that you can't get it back consistently, and you have to keep attaching the energy. So obviously you're going to use this in a trainer lock situation for the most part, and you could either use Sunflora from Archives of Silver to search him out again, or you could use obviously the new Venusaur as well. But Sunflora is good because Vileplume and Excelgor are both grass Pokemon, and it's a stage 1. So Excelgor is definitely a great card, and we'll definitely be seeing some new decks. Definitely not like Tier 1 or anything, but it'll definitely be seen around in some rogue decks. A lot of different ways to set him up, and you can set up with one turn with the DCE as well. So it's just a really all-around a good card. Anyway, next Pokemon is Blaziken. This one is kind of interesting. He has 140 HP, again, pretty standard. Water weakness is pretty good. 2 retreat cost is decent for stage 2. First attack for Fire and a Colorless is 40, then you flip, and if heads it does 30 more, if tails it does burn, which is pretty good, especially with the new Volcarona card that I'm not going to be covering because it's just kind of too bleh. But anyway, second attack is actually pretty interesting. If this came out a lot earlier, it would have been really playable, but nowadays it's not too powerful. Basically, it does 130 damage for 2 Fire and a Colorless, and then discard energy. And since he's a fire Pokemon, he's incredibly easy to accelerate with Emboar or Typhlosion, or you could just set him up yourself because he only discards 1, unlike Reshiram, but he can knock out things like Reshiram, Terrakion, and Zekrom in one hit. So that's actually a pretty good reason to use this card, but again, he's a stage 2, and with the new EX is doing 150 damage for basics, he's not that playable, but he's definitely interesting. So, and he's also, again, he's fire, so that's another reason why he's good. And next up on our list is Heatmor. And this guy, oh boy, Heatmor. If you haven't been reading the card already, it has 90 HP, which is, again, standard for a basic. Water weakness, which is great. 1 retreat cost, which is definitely great for a Pokemon like this. Second attack sucks, but his first attack, Hot Lick, for 1 Carless, says if the defending Pokemon is a Durant, it does 60 damage. And with times 2 fire weakness, this does 120 damage to Durant, which is obviously, if you're going to tell by now, it's a Durant counter. It's pretty obvious. And basically, there's no way to defend it against this unless you use something like Leavanny to get rid of its weakness. And it's hard to decelerate because it's only 1 Colorless energy, and it's super splashable, so you can put it in any deck. It doesn't have to be fire. It probably won't be in fire decks because fire decks already have good matchups against Durant anyway. But anyway, sorry, trying to catch my breath. He's just a really great Durant counter. There's almost no better solution now, and you can't really. There's not really any way to counter him that's not clunky and annoying. So Heatmor will definitely be in a lot of decks that have bad matchup against Durant, like Trainer Lock decks have terrible matchup against Durant. And I'm sure there's something else I'm forgetting, like just some stuff. Just any deck that has pretty bad matchups will definitely be running this card, so watch out for him because he will basically be an auto loss if he can get out. So next is Empoleon, and I really like Empoleon. First of all, I like the card itself, or the Pokemon itself, but I really love this card especially. So anyway, it has 140 HP, which is nice. 2 retreat cost, which is decent for stage 2, and a Lighting Weakness, which is just awful. But anyway, he has a really nice draw ability, which says once during a turn you can discard a card from your hand and then draw 2 cards, which is very good. Since stage 2 won't be used just exclusively for its draw, like Magnezone or something. But it's still a good card if you're going to use it for its attack, which is also really good. Attack command for 1 water does 10 damage times the number of Pokemon in play, both yours and your opponent's. So this is exactly like Jumpluff's attack, except for the name. And it's basically everything that Jumpluff didn't have. It has a draw support, it has good HP. It's just, even just like Jumpluff nowadays, it's just not, what am I saying? It's good. It's a good card. It does have a big problem with weakness, which Jumpluff did have, and that's why it's not very good anymore. But Empoleon, definitely very powerful. Basically, every single turn you do 70-80 damage, which is definitely very good. And decks like Zekrom Eels that keep a lot of basics on their bench will definitely have to watch out for this card, because it is just a really fantastic card. And if you have multiple Empoleons, you can just keep drawing tons of cards. It's just good. I like it. It's solid. The Lighting Weakness is probably just its only problem, but still, just great. Next is Jolteon. This card isn't that great, but I like it. I just like it. It's interesting. It's 90 HP, Fighting Weakness, which is pretty bad, but it'll be 1-hit KO by Terrakion anyway. So anyway, it has no resistance, free retreat, which is nice. Its first attack does For Carlos, it does 20 damage, and then you can also discard Lightning attached to him. It does 60, which is, you know, if this card was released back in the Stage 1's era, this could have been a decent card in Stage 1 Rush, but obviously Stage 1 Rush sucks now, so he's not that great, but he's just good. He's just good. I like him. No, he's not like anything they used in competitive play, but he's just interesting. If he came out in a different format, he might have been pretty good. Next is Plusle. This is actually a very interesting card. It has 60 HP, fighting weakness, which is not that great, 1 retreat cost, and tag draws its first attack, his second attack sucks. It says shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 4 cards. If mine is in play, or if it's on your bench, it take 8 cards, which is just ridiculous. But they will have to take 2 spots up. So I think if Call of Legends doesn't stick around in this format, this card could be in some decks as a replacement for Cleffa. But I think Virizion would be a better setup Pokemon, because draw 2 is, I'd say, better than a hand of 4. But if your deck is, for some reason, already running Plusle, is already running Minun, then this card is definitely worth keeping in your deck. And I believe the Plusle, or the Minun back in, I think, Triumphant, Unleash, had a decent setup attack as well. Two Pokemon from your deck and your bench, or 2 basics. So it could be a decent combo for setting out, but as long as Clef is around, it's not going to be very great. So next up is Aerodactyl, which is a restored Pokemon, which aren't that great, but a card in this set may make them a little better. But anyway, he's Sucky, second attack, Grass weakness, which is decent. Retreat cost of 1, and his power is your Pokemon's attacks do 10 more damage to the active Pokemon for applying weakness resistance. So this is basically a free plus power every single turn, which some people have been thinking about using a Donk deck with some powerful first turn Pokemon and using this to power them up, but again, it's not that easy to set up restored Pokemon. And Aerodactyl is just a decent card. Again, he's kind of outshadowed by, say, Kingdra Prime, because you can place the damage anywhere, and you know it's easier set up, even though it's a stage 2. But Aerodactyl could be a decent card. He's just a good thing for just straight up powered speed decks. You just like have 3 of these guys set up, and you could turn your Mewtwo EX with its... If you could turn the Mewtwo War in your favor, and you won't have to keep using the plus powers to knock out opposing Mewtwo's. It's just a really good card. But watch out if you're using him in a deck like Zekrom, or deck with Zekrom, because he does damage to both active Pokemon, so Bolt Strike will do 50 damage to you. But anyway, let's move on to the next 2 Pokemon, which are Excadrill and... Well, I'll talk about the next one later. But anyway, this Excadrill is actually pretty good. He has 120 HP, Water Weakness, and Lightning Resistance, which is definitely good in this format, so he's not going to be KO'd by Zekrom. He has 3 Retreat, which is pretty bleh. His first attack snipes for 30 for 1 fighting, which is decent. Could snipe Cleffas or anything like Pichu or whatever. The second attack is actually pretty interesting for 2 fighting. It does 50 damage. It says put a card from your discard pile into your hand, which I think is just a decent attack overall. It just gets a card from your discard pile in your hand, gets something like Special Energy, and since he's fighting, can do 100 damage and knock out things like Thundurus with a plus power, or just do decent damage to Zekrom EX, or kill eels even. So he's not that fantastic, but could be used in some decks, some fighting decks, just to get some cards back from your discard pile that are hard to get back, like Special Energy cards and supporters. So next on our list, after we're done talking about Excadrill, is Excadrill. This other Excadrill has the same stats, 120 HP, retreat costs none. I mean, weakness is 20, or it's what? Water, and its resistance is lightning, and has 4 retreat, which is even worse. Second attack isn't that great, but his first attack, if he has a Pokemon tool attached to him, it does 80. So if you say attach a Rocky Helmet to him and then attack Zekrom EX, then if the Zekrom EX attacks you, then he'll get knocked out the next turn. So he is definitely kind of a powerful Pokemon in this format with tons of lightning. It could be looked at a little more, but not going to be in any tier 1 decks or anything. So next is Zoroark, the one that everyone's been talking about. Has 100 HP, fighting weakness, resistance minus 20 to Psychic, 2 retreat costs, which doesn't matter that much, with like another card that can combo with Zoroark. And 2 decent attacks. Second one, for 2 darkness, does 20 damage times the number of damage counters on this Pokemon. With 100 HP, it's not going to have much damage on it, ever. But if it gets attacked by Thundurus or Tornadus, it could have some decent power behind it, especially with all the new darkness the things to help Darkness Pokemon set up, like Dark Claw and Dark Patch and Special Dark Energy. Anyway, his first attack is what everyone's been talking about. For double Carlos, it does 20 damage for every Dark Pokemon you have in play. So that's 120 damage without additional power, power like Dark Claw and Dark Energy and whatnot. But he just has a really powerful attack, and people have been talking about using a Dark deck with this and Darkrai EX with some other Pokemon like Weavile and Absol Prime and all this stuff. So definitely look out for that Dark deck, and Zoroark will be a force to be reckoned with. With enough power, he could even knock out an EX, but that's pretty unlikely. So next on the new trainers, first we're going to talk about the new Dark trainers, such as, oh god, I forgot to freaking, whatever, never mind. Dark Patch. There's a new trainer card, which is kind of interesting. It says attach a basic Dark Energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Darkness Pokemon. For some reason, that sounds really ridiculously specific for me. But basically, it's just like a Dynamotor in a form of trainer cards. You can set up big Pokemon like the new Crocodile or Hydreigon or Tyranitar Prime for some reason, and just put them, something for your treat like Darkrai EX. You can set them up pretty quickly. So this is definitely a very good trainer card. Speaking of good Darkness trainer cards, here's another one, Dark Claw. It says this card is attached to a Dark Pokemon. This is a tool card, by the way. It's such a Dark Pokemon, they get 20 extra attack on both active Pokemon. So if they do damage to themselves, then blah. But anyway, really great card. It can definitely increase the power of things like Crocodile and Hydreigon, Tyranitar Prime, and of course Zoroark. Just give them a lot of power, make them from decent cards into really fantastic cards with these new Darkness trainers that just really help them out a lot. So next up on the list of trainers is Enhanced Hammer, which is really stupid. Basically, it just says discard a special energy card attached to the opponent's Pokemon. So it's basically like Lost Remover, except even stupider. So, I mean, not that Lost Remover is stupid, but it's just stupider because it doesn't... Stupider. It's dumber because it goes in discard instead of Lost Zone. So once Lost Remover gets rotated, I guess this will be seen Durant, maybe. I don't know. But Lost Remover might be sticking around for a while since we're not sure whether it's going to be rotated or not. So Enhanced Hammer, I mean, not that it's easy to get special energy cards back from the discard anyway. You have to use like Recycle or Excadrill or something. But it still... If for some reason Lost Remover gets rotated and this doesn't, it will be decent. But otherwise it's just kind of bad in this format. Next one is Random Receiver. This could be a decent card in decks that don't run Collector, instead they run Dual Wall. So basically what it does is reveal cards from the top of your deck until you reveal Supporter and put it in your hand, and then shuffle them rest to the back of your deck. It's just a pretty good card. Again, it compared to Pokegear, personally, I prefer Pokegear in decks that use Collector, because most of the time, if you need this mid to late game and you need a supporter to refresh your hand, you're pretty big chance you're going to get a Collector. But for some reason, if you don't run Collector, like in CMT or ZPST or whatever, then this is a good card because you almost always get something to refresh your hand, unless you run things like Seeker or Black Belt or whatever that don't do that. But definitely when Pokegear gets rotated, this will definitely be a really playable card. It's decks like, not that, but yeah, decks like CMT and ZPST will definitely like having this card instead of Pokegear. Next one is Ultra Ball, and I love Ultra Ball. This card, for some reason, has anyone noticed that they haven't made an Ultra Ball yet? So, like, it's Ultra Ball. There's Great Ball, Ultra Ball, Master Ball, and Pokeball, and they haven't made one until like 13 years later or something. I don't know, I just find that really odd. But anyway, it's a really good card because it says discard 2 cards from your hand, and if you can't discard them, then you can't use the card. But you search your deck for any Pokemon revealed put in your hand. So at first glance I was like, yeah, this seems like a really good card. It could be used in Zekiel's to discard energy, or new Dark deck to discard Dark Energy, or Fire decks or whatever to Afterburner them, or something like that. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Something about this card. It's Computer Search from base set, but worse. No, was Computer Search really overpowered that they had to downgrade it to search? If you don't remember, Computer Search was a card in base set that lets you search for any card if you discarded 2 cards. Like, is this card really Did it really need to be downgraded that much? Not that much, but did it really need to be downgraded? It wasn't that really overpowered, but I guess in this format it's really good to discard the cards. Either way, this card is really fantastic. Again, you can use it in decks like Zekiel's, or Dark decks, or something else to get cards in your discard, just like Junk Arm. But it's easier to use on turn 1 or turn 2 because you're not going to have trainers on turn 1 or turn 2 with... You're not usually going to have them discard to use Junk Arm with, but Ultra Ball is still really good, and you can definitely use it to get some good cards. Now, next on our list is Hooligans Jim and Cass, and this card is a pretty good card. Basically, it says it's a supporter, lets you flip a coin, and if heads, you choose 3 random cards from your opponent's hand and shuffle them into their deck, which is good for disruption, but since it's a supporter, if you use it and then you get tails, then it's like, oh well, no, I can't use my setup supporters, that sucks. But if your deck probably doesn't run many supporters, then, or if it's a disruption deck, then it could run this card. I don't recommend... Oops, sorry about that, guys, my camera ran out of battery. But anyway, I won't recommend this in Durant because it lets you discard, it shuffles into their deck instead of discarding them, so it makes them harder to devour their whole deck. It would add a turn or two depending on how many Durants you have in play at the time. But it's still just a good card in decks, in disruption decks like, say, Terrakion, or maybe the new Dark deck. So definitely try running it in some decks to see how it works. Next is, Swiss Mountain. Basically, it's a pretty good stadium card that lets you flip a coin. Both players can flip a coin, and if heads, they get to switch. They get to put a sword Pokemon from their hand onto their bench, which definitely gives sword Pokemon a huge leap up in playability. So we might see a little more Archeops and Aerodactyl on our format just because this card. I mean, it's still not very good because you can only use one stadium each turn. You still probably can't get them on turn 1 or 2, but it will give anyone planning on using Archeops a big boost, and anyone planning on using Aerodactyl a big boost. So not much to say about it, it's just a good card. So now we're done with all the trainers, sort of. So now let's get on to the EXs, and I'm going to go from them to worst to best. And if you couldn't tell, the worst is Kyogre EX. It's just a really bad card. So anyway, it has 170 HP, lightning weakness, which is horrible for a EX card, because you can take 2 prizes off of Bolt Strike or Strongfold or whatever, or even Thundurus can do it with a plus power. And 4 retreat cost, so stats are not looking good right now. So its first attack is pretty bad. Just Water Carlos does 30 damage, and you can switch him with your bench. Not very great. Maybe you could switch into Gothitelle for a kind of lock or something, but it's not good. And second attack is really its only saving grace, which is Dual Splash for 2 water and a Carlos. Lets you do 50 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. Which the only thing I can see this kind of being helpful is if you can snipe Clefas, and maybe you can use them on eels. You can kill 2 eels with 1 stone, and completely destroy their setup. But you can't use it as a counter to Zekiel's because they take 2 prizes for 1 attack, basically every time. So you can't really use Kyogre in any given situation that makes sense. So sorry, Kyogre, you're just not very good in this format. So next is Entei. I don't really see any real potential for this card because he's fire, and all fire decks already have great acceleration anyway, so they're not going to need something like Entei to set them up. So anyway, enough of that. It has 180 HP, which is pretty good. Water weakness, which is also pretty good. Kyurem EX is the only thing that can one-shot you, and that is a really unlikely situation unless you're fighting the truth or something. It's 3 retreat cost, which is just okay. For EX, pretty average. First attack, Fire Fang, just for 1 fire and a Carlos. It does 30 damage and burns, which is, again, okay with Volcarona, but Volcarona sucks. Anyway, the second attack is what people were talking about, Grand Flame for 2 fire and a Carlos, seeing a pattern here. Does 90 damage, and then you attach a fire energy from your discard pile to one of your bench. So this is, again, it's good to set up fire Pokemon, but fire Pokemon already have Emboar and Typhlosion and all this stuff to set them up, so they're not going to need something that does such measly damage for an EX to set them up. So, not a big fan of Entei-EX. Maybe in a different format where Emboar and Typhlosion are rotated, but just right now, I don't see a potential for them. Some people have been thinking of using like a quad Entei deck, but you can't make a quad EX deck because you have no backup plan, and EXs kind of need a backup plan every now and then. So anyway, on to the next EX, which this one is starting to get, and this is where it starts getting pretty good, is Raikou X. You might be saying, like, whoa, Raikou X is awesome, he's the next Mewtwo, and he's, no, he's not the next Mewtwo. If you say that, you're wrong. He's not that great. I do really like Raikou EX, especially the card art, which is amazing, but I don't really like Raikou EX that much that I see him having to be the next Mewtwo, which is just the stupidest sentence ever. And Raikou EX is the next Mewtwo EX. That is, you don't say that, and be serious. But he is good. I definitely like him. He has 170 HP, fighting weakness, which is really bad against Terrakion and the new Groudon EX. And his 1 retreat cost, which is good for Sky Arrow Bridge. But anyway, his first attack, Thunder Fang, does 30 damage, and then you can flip a coin if heads, paralyzes, blah blah blah, boring attack. Second attack of what people are talking about. 2 lightning and a colorless. The same attack cost as everything else in the set. It's called Volt Bolt. I love that name, by the way. And he says discard all lightning energy attached to this Pokemon. And then does 100 damage when you punch Pokemon, which is really good because it can snipe your Uniclus or, again, revival eels. And another good thing is 1 retreat cost, and that is really good in the electric decks because you can, use Sky Arrow Bridge to retreat for 2 Raikous and use electric to power them up consecutively and keep getting Volt Bolts out every turn. But 100 damage is not very good in this format, especially you have to keep supporting him with electrics and whatnot. So he definitely will be probably a one-off tech in Zek Eels, but that's probably it. Maybe Magma Eels if that's still around, or Eel Zone, whatever. But not much he's great at, but he is pretty good in the mirror. And it's really, if you could just run Catcher instead of another Raikou, like you could run the 4th Catcher instead of Raikou and just get Eels, because they're not hard to KO. They only have 90 HP. Like everything in this format can KO them in 1 hit. But it's still good against the Truth matchup, because they can kill Uniclus and then put their damage in a tight spot. But Truth isn't that great of a deck anymore. But anyway, let's move on to the EXs that I really love in the set. First is Tornadus EX. Now I really love Tornadus EX. He has a lot of potential. So he has 170 HP, a lightning weakness, which is again terrible for EX. Fighting resistance, which means he gets 3-shotted by Terrakion. With EVL8, it's like a 4-shot, I think. Yeah, 4-shot by Terrakion if you have an EVL8 on him, which is ridiculous. And 1 retreat cost, which is again really good, especially with the deck that works well with him. So his 2 attacks are also very good, both attacks. First attack, Blow Through for a Carless, or for a double Carless, does 30 damage, and if there's a stadium card in play, it does 30 more damage, that's 60. And with something like Sky Arrow Bridge or Twist Mountain, whatever, it does 60 damage first turn, which is pretty good, in my opinion. And his next attack, Power Blast, for 3 colorless energy, does 100 damage. Then you flip a coin, if tails, you discard it in energy, which is just a really great attack. And I definitely see this card being used in CMT to maximize the early game damage from 80 to 100, which is just really great in this format. Just set them up CMT. Setup is really easy. You can, even if you don't get the Grass Energy and Celebi setup, you could still play Sky Arrow Bridge and do Blow Through for 60. It's just a really solid attack, and definitely see this card being used in a lot of decks. And you don't. The side effect isn't really that bad for Power Blast because it's only 1 energy, and you can just keep attaching. Where you could just keep attaching every time it gets discarded. So you're not really gonna have to worry about keeping him attacking like Tornadus or Thundurus or something. And it's just a really fantastic card. Definitely watch out for this card. The only problem is really the lightning weakness. So next is Groudon EX, and speaking of Pokemon I love Groudon EX. Not just because I have the full art right here, but because he's amazing. In my opinion, he has 108 HP, water weakness, and lightning resistance, which is amazing. With EVL8, he needs 5 Lost Burns KO, which is ridiculous. 4 retreat cost, which is pretty blah. First attack, Tromp, is just kind of okay when you don't consider a second attack. For a fighting and a Carless, it does 20 damage and then 10 to all of their bench, which is definitely a good attack. For spreading, you can KO Clefairs that are sitting on the bench pretty easily. And with his second attack, this is amazing. You can use Giant Claw, which for 2 fighting and a Carless is 80. And if they already have 2, fighting Pokemon already has 2 or more damage counters on it, it does 40 more, 120 damage, plus the 2 that's already on it, that's 140. That is ridiculously powerful. And there's tons of cards that can help him set up. You can use Double Kingdra, you can use Kyurem to set him up, you can use Rocky Helmet, you can use Druddigon for no apparent reason, you can use Absol Prime, you can use just so many things you can use to set up this Pokemon. Second attack, but it does take 3 energy, so you could run him in like something like Cake or something to power him up easy. Then use Cure him to spread the damage, and then retreat for Groudon. So I just love everything about this card. He's splashable. He's just good. He's good. I like him. I've definitely been testing out some decks with him, and I'm not so sure if he's that great, but definitely a lot of decks you can use him in. Just Groudon decks will be very viable. They're not viable, they are viable, but they'll be very versatile, and you can also use in mono fighting decks people have been talking about, like Landers and stuff. So yeah, he's just really fantastic. And now for the one, the only, basically the Mewtwo EX of the set, which I do agree on, is Darkrai EX. He has 180 HP, fighting weakness sucks for an EX, psychic resistance, which is really great in this format. Steer Tree Cost, and he's Dark type, which is great because of all the new Dark type stuffs. He has a really nice ability called Dark Cloak, which is each of your Pokemon that has any dark energy attached to them have no retreat cost. You can splash them in any basic decks with Prism Energy, so then you can retreat them for free, even if they have Prism of Rainbow, which is just a great splashable card. His first attack is not fantastic, but it's definitely good. He can two-hit KO Mewtwo without additional damage. Does 90 damage for 2 Dark and a Colorless. Does 30 damage to one of their bench. You can snipe babies or Tynamos or other things like eels a couple turns. Or you could catch a Truth deck off guard or something. So he's definitely very splashable and will definitely be used in the new Dark deck. Just a lot of uses for this card. He's a lot of very powerful. He's powerful. The new Dark things. He can KO things like Zekrom and Reshiram. There's just a lot of things he can do. He's just really fantastic. He's definitely the Mewtwo EX of the set, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions. Not Raikou. No, he's not. Raikou is not. It's not in the file. It is not. So definitely look out for Darkrai EX because he's an amazing card. And next is one more card I want to be talking about. I want to talk about not that much, but one of the secret rares in the set is really zoomed in. It's a golden Pokemon catcher. There's also a couple other secret rares like Archeops and Gardevoir, but catcher in golden form is definitely going to be worth like 70, 80 bucks. It's just secret rare. That's like the best thing in the world. But this actually, in my opinion, spouts a problem. Now, Emerging Powers came out in August, and this came out in May. It was going to come out in May. So this means that catcher will actually be staying around for another format. And in my opinion, I don't really like that. I don't think such a format-shaping card like catcher should stay around longer than it should, or longer than it already is. So, unless they're planning on re-releasing a catcher in the future anyway, then this doesn't really affect anything. But personally, I don't really like this decision to make this golden catcher. But of course, in Japan, this came out in December, and Emerging Powers came out, or it wasn't even Emerging Powers, it was just Black and White regular, came out in February. So that's a completely irrelevant in Japan, but in America, it just kind of sucks for me. In my opinion, I don't like it. So that's my thoughts on Dark Explorers. A lot of great cards, a lot of format-shaping cards. Definitely one of the best sets in the format right now. And I definitely am very happy with the pre-release I went to. I got some of the best cards in the set, like Empoleon, Selgor, Zoroark, some great trainers, and of course, my beloved Groudon EX full art, which I love. So thanks for watching this episode of Mix Up. I hope you like everything, and thanks to PokeBeach for these awesome scans. I hope I didn't ask them permission. I just hope they're not mad at me. I hope this isn't like illegal. I'm sure it's not illegal, but it's not recommended. I assume. So thanks for watching. So next time we'll definitely be talking about more Groudon EX because there's a lot of what I'm talking about with Groudon EX. And see you guys for more YouTube videos in the future. Most likely more Mix Up. Later.